Hello, everybody, and happy holidays. This is your favorite senator, Senator Angela Williams Graves, representing the 21st Senatorial District in the Commonwealth of Virginia, right here in Norfolk, where we do good work on your behalf. And I am so excited to be here with you today. Forgive me, I have the sniffles. You know, 'tis the season. It's cold. You can't tell here what the actual season is because we have all four of them on any given day in any given week right now. But I'm excited to be here with you today. I want to have a conversation with you about constitutional amendments. There's a lot that is going on as we ramp up. I think we have something like 22 or 23 days to session. We're streaming this live on December 18th. And so I want to say we have 22 or 23 days to session. And one of the big topics is going to be constitutional amendments, right? And so how do we work through constitutional amendments and what do they mean and how do they actually become a part of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia? And so I'm going to start with, and first of all, hold on. I got to give a big shout out to my husband. Today is his birthday. Happy birthday for y'all who follow me on social media. You know, he is not on social media, but he is Mr. Husband. And so today is his birthday. So we're going to be celebrating him a little bit later, going to dinner and stuff. But anyway, so what is a constitutional amendment? So a constitutional amendment refers to a change or addition to the Virginia Constitution. And if you think about what is the Constitution, okay, so we have the Constitution of the United States of America, and then each state has their own constitution. And so if you are or have ever owned a business, this is the example that I give everywhere that I go. If you have ever owned a business, small, large, or whatever, and you've ever incorporated that business or that business has been an LLC, you have what is called an operating agreement. Okay, you have an operating agreement in that business. And that business, the operating agreement says who's responsible for the day-to-day operations, who can bind the business, the corporation, the LLC to obligations like debt, okay? How many people does it take to sign off on certain expenditures, right? So it could say it only takes one signature if the expenditure is less than $50,000. If it's more than $50,000, it takes two signatures, right? How many members are on your board? What are the terms of how you do business as a business with the public, right? Who's in charge? Who does what? The Constitution of Virginia is the same way. It is the operating agreement that the Commonwealth of Virginia has, not only with its citizens, all right, but with businesses who operate within the Commonwealth of Virginia, with nonprofits, with other businesses outside of the Commonwealth of Virginia. How do we, as a state, conduct business? And it's all spelled out in the Constitution of Virginia. And so when we want to change the Constitution of Virginia, that's a big deal, right? You cannot just change how we do business willy-nilly based on what political party is in office at what time. All right, because it would change and we would just be flip-flopping back and forth, and people could not depend on us because we would be prone to political whims. So the Constitution is how we do business, all right? And to amend the Constitution, it is a process. Now, some people would say that process is too lengthy, it's not fair, it's this or that. But again, we can't just change how we do business with almost 8 million people, give or take 8 million people overnight because the Democrats win, or because the Republicans win, or, anything in between. So it does need to be a thoughtful and somewhat tedious process. And we're going to talk about that today. So, step one, what has to happen? Everything in the General Assembly goes through legislation, right? Everything goes through legislation. So, legislation has to be crafted, and that legislation has to be introduced. And that legislation, just like every other piece of legislation, has to pass both bodies. But in this case, it has to pass both bodies twice. All right. So the General Assembly must approve the amendments 2 years in a row with an election in between. All right. So 2 years in a row with an election in between. So this year coming up, 2025, will be the first year that our constitutional amendments, and there are three of them, we're going to talk about those, that those will be before the body of the General Assembly on the House side and on the Senate side. The House has filed theirs, the Senate has filed theirs, and we're ready to rumble. All right. So then step two is we have to have an election. All right. So even this process, all right, is outlined in where? The Constitution of Virginia. So step two is that we have to have an election. So remember, we talked about it has to pass through both bodies with an election in between. Well, that part for Virginia is real easy because we have an election every year, right? But after the first vote, then there has to be an election and a new body voted into the House of Delegates, because the House of Delegates runs every 2 years. And generally speaking, there's always some turnover. So the body of people in the House of Delegates who voted for this amendment the first time is a different body of people who will have to vote for it the second time, because we would have had an election. And in 2025, you all know we have several elections here in Norfolk. In addition to the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, the attorney general's race, we also have the Commonwealth's attorney, we have the treasurer, we have the commissioner of revenue, we don't have the clerk of court. Who do we have? Oh, we have the sheriff. Okay. We have all the constitutional officers who are up for election in 2025 as well. So not only do we have the House of Delegates up for re-election in 2025, we also have other constitutional. So this constitutes our election. And so now what happens is the first body that approved and voted for in the House of Delegates, that voted for the amendment, is now a different body after 2020. Once we go through the 2025 election, those people will be sworn in 2026, and this will come back. Wait a minute, hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. This will come back to that new body in 2026. Yes, got it. 2026. For them to vote on again. All right. So we have, in this specific case, we have the first election in January. I'm sorry, the first vote in January of 2025. We have an election in November of 2025. And then we have a vote again with the new General Assembly in 2026. Now, you may ask, what about the Senate? I'm glad you did. The Senate serves a 4-year term. So in most cases, the Senate body that voted for the amendment, the amendment in 2025 is going to be the same group of people in 2026, unless something happens, somebody resigns, wins a lieutenant governor election and we have to have a special whatever. But generally speaking, the Senate is more stable than the House of Delegates because we have 4-year terms and not 2-year terms. And that's that's the Senate of Virginia. Okay. So now step 3, the voters decide. So once we voted for it once in 2025, we've had an election in 2025, we voted for it again in 2026. All right, so that's voted 2 times with an election in between. Then the amendment becomes a referendum and gets voted on by the voters on election day. Now here's the thing, there are people who may or may not agree with any or all of the amendments. Some may agree with some and not all and whatnot. The final say so of whether or not how we do business as a Commonwealth is up to you. It's up to the voters. And here's another thing that I say all the time. All right. I trust the voters. All right. I trust the voters. And the reason I trust the voters, guess why, y'all? Because y'all have been voting for me for the last 14 years. And you think I'm doing a good job. I trust that. I trust that you will tell me if you like these amendments and you believe that they should be a part of the Constitution, or if you don't like them and you don't believe that they should be a part of the Constitution. It is not a situation where it's legislation and because we vote on it in the General Assembly and it goes to the governor's desk. The beautiful part, the beauty of constitutional amendments is that they do not require any gubernatorial action. The governor can stand on his head if he wants to in opposition. All right. But once they've been voted on twice with an election in between, they go to the voters. And the voters get to say yes or no. And if the voters say yes, then the amendment becomes a part of the Constitution of Virginia. All right. But the governor has no say. It is our job as legislators to shepherd those amendments through the process and get them on the ballot so that voters can come out and give us their honest opinion about whether or not they want these items enshrined into the Constitution of Virginia. And understand that this is not a process that any of us takes lightly. And we will be working throughout the course of the next few years over this, because this is a 25-26 process, right? So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But here's the timeline. So January 2025, the 2025 session, will vote on these amendments. We will pass them, all right? November of 2025, the House of Delegates is up for election and re-election, all right? We will win as Democrats our majority in the House of Delegates. We will maintain the 51 seats that we have, and ideally we will expand that to 51 or 52 or 53 or 54 or 55. Okay. The reason why this is important is when you hear people talking about we've got the majority, we need to maintain the majority. Passing these amendments one time in January of 2025 means nothing if we cannot pass them again in January of 2026. All right. They never get to the ballot for you to have your say if we don't win the majority, if Democrats do not hold the majority and ideally expand the majority in the 2025 election so that we go back into session in 2026 and have a majority. This is not about a power grab. This is not about any of that. This is about making, and when you see the amendments, I think that you will agree with me. So this is about making sure that the voters have say in how Virginia does business in its constitution. And if you get through the first step and you don't get through the second step, which is the election, all right, because literally the third step is the second vote. But if you don't get through the second step of the election, then it doesn't matter. And then 2026, in that November election, the constitutional amendments are on the ballot as a referendum question. All right. So now, what constitutional amendments are we looking at in the 2025 session? I'm so glad you asked. All right. So the Abortion Rights Amendment, that has been the topic of conversation since the Dobbs decision a few years ago. That is the decision that basically threw out Roe v. Wade via our Supreme Court. All right. And the Supreme Court said every state is on its own. Every man or woman for themselves. All right. So every state is on its own. And many of you have seen since then a lot of the different states that have put into place these extreme and restrictive abortion bans. Virginia remains the only southern state where a woman still has bodily autonomy because it's in the law. And as we've seen by the Supreme Court, laws can be overturned. Once something is enshrined in the Constitution, the same way we had to put it there, those are the same steps we have to take in order to take it out. It is a difficult process, all right? And so we want to make sure in Virginia that women have bodily autonomy, that women have the right to contraception, and that women have the right to abortion care here in Virginia. And whether you are pro-life or pro-choice, I submit to you, I am pro-choice, and pro-choice is pro-life if you want to become a parent. But if you don't, you should not be forced to have a child, nor should you have to jump through hoops as a woman to obtain contraception. This is all about healthcare. It is all about making sure that women are safe, that women are protected, and women have bodily autonomy over their own bodies. All right, I'm gonna get off that soapbox because I could stay there for a while. The second constitutional amendment is the restoration of voting rights. All right, it is the restoration of voting rights in Virginia. If I am not mistaken, if we are not the only state, I think we are one of two. All right. But it's no more than two, us and another one. But I think at this point, we're the only state where there is no pathway for an individual to have their voting rights restored. Okay. If they have committed a felony crime. All right. And so the way that it currently stands now, the governor, whoever it is that sits in that seat, the governor has the right to say yes, no, maybe so. They can say, well, if you do 50 jumping jacks, we'll restore your right to vote. If I assemble a panel of people and all these people I assemble a panel from think that you have the right to get your vote, think that you should have your voting rights restored, even after you have served your time, even after you have paid your fines, even after whatever, I can assemble a panel of people. It can be anybody from Daffy Duck to the president of the United States to say whether to have a say in this process, because the Constitution simply says that the right to vote is only restored by the governor. All right. And it doesn't say how, who, what, when, where, and how. It says none of that. And it's racist in nature, and it is obtuse in today's society. And so we want to ensure that the governor's authority is removed from the restoration process. Now, here's the reason why. There have been several governors who have seen the value in redemption, seen the value in second chances, understood that when people have done their time and they come out and they want to be part of society, saying to them, well, you can do this, but you can't do that. You can do this, but no, you can't have any say so in who represents you, but you're paying taxes and you're working and you're doing the right thing. That's not right. All right. So we've had several governors who have seen the value in second chances and have worked to make the process as easy and as streamlined as possible in their administrations. This governor that we currently have has done just the opposite. And it is his right to do so. It is their right to do so. The Constitution does not outline a process. It simply says that the authority lies with the governor. So again, the governor can impanel people, they can put a committee together, they can do whatever it is that they want in order to restrict how many people get their voting rights back or expand how many people get their voting rights back. And that creates a yo-yo type situation for Virginians who are returning from prison and jail or whatever and have felony convictions and have done their time and they want to get their rights back. We just believe that that is not right. And I will tell you that this amendment has come up before. Not a single Republican has ever voted for it. So when y'all go to the polls and all and you're voting, remember the people who vote to give folks a true second chance, and that's Democrats. The third amendment is the Marriage Equality Amendment. And this amendment simply says that the proposed amendment would change the language to say that marriage is between two adults, two adult people who love each other, two adult people who want to, make a home and create a family or do whatever. This simply says that if you love each other and you're two consenting adults, that you can get married. And it takes out the antiquated language of it has to be a male and a female. Because we know in 2024 that this is something, we have all kinds of families. We have all kinds of families and families who love each other and support each other, and people who love each other and support each other and want to be recognized as a married couple under the eyes of the law. And so some people don't agree with it, and that's fine. That is your prerogative to disagree with one, some, or all of these constitutional amendments. But you deserve the right through the referendum process to say whether or not these things should be in the Constitution of Virginia. And that's what we're working to do. I'm not asking anybody to betray their personal spiritual beliefs. By all means, find out where you vote in 2026 and go vote on on whatever is on the ballot and the constitutional amendments. But we want to give the voters the opportunity to say yes or no. And again, I trust the voters. Whatever y'all say on this is what is going to happen, because ultimately And more than in any other case, what you want will happen because you have an opportunity to vote for it in the 2026 election, which is really not that far away, y'all. All right. So now here's the thing. We have a special election coming up on June 7th. We had we had one member on the Democratic side to run for Congress. In this, he was in the state Senate. He ran for Congress and he won his congressional seat. And so now that leaves a vacancy in the Senate. And remember, I told y'all we've got one vote majorities. Democrats have one vote majorities in the House and in the Senate. And the House is 51 out of 100 that are Democrats. In the Senate, it's 21 out of 40 that are Democrats. And so with the vacancy left in the Senate District 32. I know it's small, y'all. You can't see it. I can barely see it. But Senate District 32, all right, that is Kanan Sirnivasan. And he is an incredible human being. I worked with him on a couple of pieces of legislation. He was well prepared, answered all my questions. I mean, I played devil's advocate with him. And for a new delegate, I was like, wow, dude, you are really on your game. Okay. And so I am hosting a fundraising link that you see here on the screen that will allow you to donate. And the donation that you make will be available. And wait a minute, let me see. Hold on. I think I can get it across the bottom of yeah, I got it. There we go. Got it across the bottom of the screen. Because y'all know I play producer too, right? But this donation link will split every donation 30 30 30, right? So or 33 33 33, whatever it is, get to 100, it'll split it between three of us. And so Kiernan is running Kanan Sirnivasan, I get his name wrong and I'm so sorry. Kanan Sirnivasan is running for Senate District 32, and he was a member of the House of Delegates. So now when he decides to run for Senate District 32, he leaves the House of Delegates. Remember, we talked about that one seat majority. Well, now guess what we got? 50-50. Okay. So on January 7th, you have the opportunity, if you live in Loudoun, understand that this election is not local in Norfolk. This is in Loudoun County up in Northern Virginia. Those folks have an opportunity to go out and vote for JJ Singh. JJ won the Democratic nomination to fill House District 26, which is the seat that is being vacated by Kanan Sirnivasan. All right. I know you got to play. You just got to follow the dots, right, in order to understand where we are. What I'm asking folks to do here in Hampton Roads is to donate. Whether it's $5, $15, $25, my whole $5 Fridays session is dedicated to this race on January 7th. All of my fundraising from now through the end of the year is dedicated to splitting those funds with these races on January 7th, because we need to maintain our House majorities in the Senate. We need to maintain our Democratic majorities in the Senate and in the House of Delegates. All right. So there is the link at the bottom of the screen for you to be able to donate. We'll make sure that when we repost this, that we also put that link there for folks to be able to donate. But whatever you donate is going to help us maintain our majority, and it will also help my office continue to do good work on your behalf. So we're at 29 minutes and we try to stick to 30 here. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you so much for being with us and for tuning in every time. A lot of folks tune in after we do in the rerun section. I want to wish you, I celebrate Christmas. And if you don't, I'm sorry, but please take my well wishes for a Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Friends and Family Day if you don't celebrate any of it. I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a most prosperous new year. I enjoy the work that I do. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do it. And I look forward to going into 2025 with Democratic majorities in the House and in the Senate and doing good work on your behalf. So I'm going to leave you like I always do and remind you that you are a walking, talking, living, breathing miracle, and remind you that I love you. Your senator loves you. Y'all have a great day. God bless and have a happy new year.